Hey everybody, welcome. Hey everybody, welcome to the Rob and Mariya Show. We are very excited today to start our first series, and this is going to be about crime and disability. Different aspects such as prevention, statistics, building healthy relationships, and what you can do to be proactive. And we are very excited also to have as our guests, we have Zach and Noah from the Crime Victims Center, which was formerly called the Rape Crisis Center. And oh, in case you didn't know, I'm Rob. And that's
I'm Mariya, sorry. Yes, I'm over here. I'm Mariya.
Okay. So guys, welcome.
Thank you.
I appreciate you taking the time to come on our show. And what is the Crime Victims Center?
So we are a comprehensive victim service center, and like you said, we started as the Erie County Rape Crisis Center in 1973, and our first service was actually our 24/7 crisis helpline, which was ran by volunteers, and they could call in after something happened to them, and they would just have somebody to talk to, get some resources of where they can go. And then in the early 2000s, our name was changed to Crime Victim Center of Erie County, which kind of better reflected that we're a comprehensive victim service center. So anything from still with sexual assault and rape, but we also deal with families of murder victims. We deal with victims of fraud and other monetary crimes. So everything across the board, whatever happens, we can help with that.
So any kind of big trauma?
Yes,
Okay.
Right.
yes.
Now, did that come about because of more funding, or what led to that?
So I think these bigger agencies across Pennsylvania and some of our funders, they saw the work that we were doing with the rape and sexual assault victims and thought that we were kind of the suitors to expand into those other services and other types of crime, because we had the staff with the training to kind of walk people through trauma, and they started to get a better understanding that trauma happens with everything.
Well,
like
sure.
monetary crimes and all.
Okay. Well, that's great.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you want me to cover our services a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I'll cover a bit of our counseling and court advocacy program, and then Noah, who's our prevention education specialist, will kind of walk through the prevention ed side of things.
Hi,
But
Angie.
So our counseling program is exactly how it sounds. If you were affected by a crime and you want to have help and have someone to talk to for an hour, then you come in for an hour, half-hour session at a time, and you have somebody to talk to, and they're your ongoing counselor, and you can meet with them once a week, once a month, twice a month, whatever it is, and they'll help you unpack some of that trauma and try and help you work through it.
I have a question relating to that. Would the counselor be allowed to go to them, or does the victim have to go to, because I'm just thinking, they may, who knows, they may not want to leave the house for a while, depending on the nature of the crime,
So we don't do actual in-house visits. We do have satellite offices in Northeast, Corey, and a couple different areas, Edinburgh, that our counselors go to. For the people who live out in those areas can go to one spot to seek the services from those counselors. And then we also have phone sessions, and we have what they call doxy sessions, which are like video chats, where they can talk if the individual wants to be in the comfort of their own home during that, they can do that. It's just going to be over the phone or on a computer.
Well, that's
very
good.
similar to like a telehealth.
Sure,
kind of.
yeah.
And we also will meet somebody in a public place. So if they want to go to Tim Hortons, we can go to Tim Hortons and meet. But it has to be a public place.
Yeah, I understand. Okay.
And then a little bit about our court advocacy program, which oftentimes intersects with our counselors, that our counselors will become the advocates in the judicial system for the victims. But we do have court advocates, and we have 3 based in the courthouses where their offices are. And they'll just walk with the victims through kind of every step of the process, whether it's meeting with the lawyers at the beginning or the district attorneys, or they'll go with them to PFAs, and they'll go with them through their preliminary hearings, the actual trials, and whatever they need while they're seeking those actual legal help. We'll have an advocate with them the whole time.
What about like in the case of rape? I'm thinking specifically like accompanying them to the police station, or
So yes, a big one for us is we always have a advocate or a counselor on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if someone was just victimized and are at the hospital, they'll call us, and no matter what time it is, if they want, an advocate will be down at the hospital with them through any exam or whatever they need down there.
Yeah,
that is.
I thought for the first thing, if something happens, is that you need to go to the hospital, get that test,
Yes.
and then go from there. The
Yes.
cop will come to you, like you
Mhm.
said.
Yes, so
So I
we're there with them.
figured, yeah, that's the rules.
That is so important because victims often feel like going to the hospital and you know, talking to the police, it's almost like they're being victimized again.
Mhm.
You know, that kind of thing. It's so important that they have someone on their side, you know, to kind of hold their hand and, you know, answer questions or whatever. Yeah,
And that's what we're there for.
great. That's awesome.
And then Noah can talk a bit about our prevention education department.
Yeah, so the primary function of prevention education is just to prevent crime through awareness and what we call primary prevention. And primary prevention is just your multi-session awareness groups, but you're also building skills that, you know, kids to any age group can learn to take into the world and just prevent crime by being a good bystander intervention, and just helping out someone when they see someone in need. So we're doing that through primary prevention, teaching people about different crimes going on in the area and what they can do to help. And then with our what we call secondary prevention, is these are our typically one-time awareness sessions. So we go to preschools all the way to high school. We talk about age-appropriate topics relating to personal body safety, healthy relationships, you know, how to use the internet in a safe manner, how to stay safe online. We've been talking about dating apps, bullying. So we're really just trying to educate kids on what is right, what isn't, and how they can help someone if there is someone in need in these areas.
That's fantastic. That's a great service that you guys provide because let's face it, like a lot of things, it starts with our young people. You know, if they can learn these things at a very young age, then as they grow up, hopefully we're going to see a lot less crime. So.
Did you guys see the news with, you know, the Zuckerberg and, you know, does this also help with like feeling like suicide or the media? Do you have like lessons of how to stay away from that? You said that you had said the last part again. Can you say it again? You do have preventions of how to talk to people online, but do you have like preventions of like how to talk to someone about something that's going online? Like, how do you express that to someone? Like, what do they do? Like, hey, somebody's contacting me, but I don't want to tell my parents, but I need somebody to help me stop this, but what do I do?
Yes, we always advocate for, you know, if you don't want to talk to parents or just anyone in your immediate life, the Crime Victim Center is free and confidential. And even though you may not be sure if you're a victim of crime, but you still want to talk to someone about something that's going on, just give us a call and we'll be there to answer and to help you. And if we can't provide a service that you're really in need of for mental health or just in any other area, we are able to do referrals as well.
And then another question, sorry, I have questions. Is there, well, you know how sometimes there's like, oh, you need to do it in that 10-year span thing? Is that still a thing, or is it like, what if something happens a while, like a long time ago, and you had a traumatic and it brought it back? What are the steps for that?
Yeah, so just give us our call. Our counseling is available for any crime or just any trauma that has happened. You know, in
Doesn't matter
any
the
point in
year?
your life. No,
Okay.
it doesn't matter.
Do you know if, either one of you know if there's any movement afoot to try to do something about that statute of limitations
Yeah.
that Maria was in,
It's only
bringing
like
up? Yeah.
10 years and then
I
after.
thought it was less than that for rape. I thought it was like 7 years.
Yeah,
I could be
I
wrong.
forget which one it is.
So there have been a lot of changes as far as that. There's a lot of stuff in the works in legislation to change those statute of limitations and, so it's ever evolving, and what it is right now may not be that in 2 to 5 years.
Okay.
So, but there are limits on as far as reporting
Yeah.
the crimes and being able to prosecute the crimes. There are limits on those.
Mhm.
So we will encourage folks, if you're a victim of crime now, then, it's important to report that
Mm.
crime. But it's not contingent on receiving services. You don't have to report the
Yeah.
crime.
Sure.
But if you want to seek justice, there are legal terms as far as time
Right,
limits.
sure.
So,
There's a lot of, as far as reporting, there's a lot of judgment that goes on there. Well, why didn't the person report it if it really happened? And a lot of times the victim themselves can feel guilty that, well, I didn't report. Yeah, that's right. So there's a lot of conflicting feelings. And folks, for our audience members, you're not going crazy. This is actually Angie Devine,
Yeah, she's in the
who you
green.
don't see. She's incognito.
She's shy.
Because she's so humble, she doesn't want to be on air. So that's
You hear
fine.
commentary, that's
Yes,
Angie.
but-
It's wonderful.
But Angie was instrumental in bringing this whole thing together. So we want to thank you, Angie.
well, I appreciate the opportunity to work with you guys. You've got a lot to share, so this is very exciting.
Yep.
I had a comment about that educating part of, I think when we say crime or victim, we only think about the one rape and like just that. But I think it's more than just that. Obviously, like, not just the whole rape part, but there's other things that they don't know that that's not okay. Like, what do you do for that? Presentations, you know what I mean? Hey, this is not okay either, but how do they know it's not okay? And then it happened to them and they're like, oh, I thought that was fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what do you do with that?
So that's why we changed our name as well to the Crime Victim Centers, because people were getting these letters in the mail and they see Rape Crisis Center, and they say, I'm not a victim of sexual assault, but they were probably a victim of something else, and that's why we send those letters. So we changed our name to be more, to broaden our list that we send out, so people know, like, this is for victims and not just sexual assault victims, it's all victims. And for that, we teach with younger kids boundaries and just what is your boundary, what is your personal space, and how do you feel when that's violated, because that feeling tells you, that it was violated. So how do you feel if someone crosses this boundary, and how can we appropriately say, hey, that's not okay? So we teach those skills. And then for people that are not kids, we're talking about adults and older adults, we still talk about healthy relationships and the boundaries within that healthy relationship. What is healthy, what isn't healthy, and then what is just straight abusive? So we talk about that and just talk about the differences between the three and how we can effectively communicate to our partners, to people that aren't in an intimate relationship, our own boundaries.
I think the more we educate them, the more less things happen. So yeah, that's cool.
Definitely. All right. It was very exciting for me to see that you guys had statistics that would compare the number of crimes, generally speaking, not only between people with disabilities and people without disabilities, but also kind of breaking it down in terms of different disabilities. So I wasn't even aware that information existed. So that was kind of cool. We had this in front of us. Zach, is that your department here?
I can talk a bit about it, but to be honest, Noah is the one who kind of
Okay.
gathered
So
all
what
these
I could
statistics
listen
up.
to?
Sure.
So if he wants to go over them.
So first, before we even get into this, let's break it down by the disability type so our viewers understand what we're talking about when we say each category. So to start with cognitive, we're talking about serious difficulty concentrating, remembering, or making decisions. And we move down to independent living, we're talking about difficulty doing errands alone. Ambulatory, that's your mobilities, we're talking about there's something, an impairment that prevents or impedes walking. And then with vision, we have blindness or serious difficulty seeing. Self-care, that's your difficulty dressing or bathing. And then hearing, we're talking about deafness or serious difficulty to hear. And all our statistics up until our graphs at the end are going to be per 1,000 people, age 12 and over, except for independent living, which counts as 15 and over.
Okay.
So to start off with violent crime against people with disabilities, it's broken down into serious violent crime and simple assault, and then it's tallied up to our total violent crime. So for cognitive disabilities, we're talking about 34.6. So 34 people, 35 per 1,000 experience serious violent crime. But it's important to note that may seem low to some viewers, but when we're talking about people with disabilities, they are 3 times more likely to be sexually abused as children, and even 3 times more likely to be victims of violent crimes as adolescents and adults. So we have to keep that in mind when we're talking about this. These numbers are 3 times more than a non-disabled person. So for that, serious violent crime is 35. Simple assault, we're talking 48, 49 per 1,000. So the total that up per 1,000 is 88.3.
Okay.
Independent living, we're talking about 20.2 for serious violent crime and 18.1 for simple assault. And that's a total violent crime of 38.4. And for your mobility, we're talking about 15 per 1,000 for serious violent crime, and then 19.7 for simple assault, and that's 34.7. As for vision, the total is 47.6, with 26 being your serious violent crime, and 21.6 being per 1,000 simple assault crimes. Self-care, 31.7, and then 16.6 violent crime, plus the 20.5 simple assault. And lastly, for hearing, this is 23.6 total violent crime victimization, with the serious violent crime being 9.4 and simple assault being 14.2.
Okay. This next section is very, I guess, enlightening, you would say. When you have persons with disabilities, and then the next column is persons without disabilities. I'm seeing a stark contrast there. But what you were saying is really true. 3 times the likelihood of being a victim of either a violent crime or a simple assault if you have a disability.
Yeah, so this next one, we break it down by persons with and without disabilities, but also with their victim characteristics. So we're talking about male, female, and ethnicity.
Okay.
So persons with disabilities, we have a total of 46.2 violent victimization, and persons without, we have 12.3. So breaking it down to male and female, persons with disabilities, the total violent crime victimization is 42.7. And then compare that to people without disabilities, it's only 13.4. So we're seeing that 2 to 3 times more. And for female, we have 49.4 versus 11.3. And just to break it down by race and ethnicity, this excludes Hispanic origin until we get to that category, we'll name it. So for white, both male and female, we have 45.1 for people with disabilities, and without disabilities for white, we have 11.7. And just to move into African American, we have 39 for persons with disabilities and 12.5 for African Americans without disabilities. So for total violent victimization for the Hispanic group, we have 55.3 with disabilities versus the 12.3 persons without disabilities, total violent crime victimization. And the other category just includes Asians, Native Hawaiians, and other Pacific Islanders, American Indians, Alaskan Natives, and persons that identify as 2 or more races. So to go start with persons with disabilities in this other category, it's 28.2 versus 6.4. So we can really see the difference with that last one. And then if we move into the rate of violent victimization by the type of crime, still comparing it to people with disabilities without, we get 46.2 at the total violent victimization against people with disabilities versus the 12.3 persons without disabilities when we look at this type of crime evaluation. So we go with the serious violent crime, the total is 17.9 for persons with disabilities compared to the total of serious violent crime at only 4 for people without disabilities. So what do we mean by these serious violent crime? We're talking about sexual assault and robbery and aggravated assault. So just to break it down, sexual assault, we're seeing 4.1 with persons with disabilities versus 0.9 for persons without disabilities. And for robbery, we're seeing a 5.6 for persons with disabilities versus a 1 for people without disabilities. And lastly, within the violent crime, we're seeing aggravated assault at 8.2 for persons with disabilities and 2 for persons without disabilities. And then for simple assault, we're seeing 28.3 for persons with disabilities versus an 8.3 for those without.
The next section, it compares people with single disabilities versus people with multiple disabilities. And I think this is a really important section because we have a tendency to think of, okay, you're either blind or you're in a wheelchair or you're on the autism spectrum. Well, people can be many different disabilities all at once, obviously. And looking at this, I see an increase. I mean, you'll get into this, Noah, but I saw an increase with this in terms of the type of crime. But I was a little surprised to see that the increase wasn't all that significant. I thought it would be more than that. But if you want to run through that, that's great.
Yeah, let's break it down. So this is going to be your victim offender rate of victimization by the number of disabilities and type of crime. So we have single disability and multiple disabilities we're talking about, and your total victimization is 29.6. And when we say multiple disabilities, it goes up to 35.2. And it really isn't not that much between the totals between single and multiple, but we also have to take into account this is per 1,000 people, and the percentages, if we look at that, is probably going to be much higher. So when we say 35, this is still per 1,000 people. So for serious violent crime, we have the single disability being at 11.4 and the multiple disabilities being at 14.1. And to break it down, it's still going to be close, but we have rape, sexual assault at 1.4 for a single disability and 2.8 for multiple disabilities. At robbery, we have 4.5 for single and 5 for multiple. For aggravated assault, we have 5.5 and 6.4 for multiple. Simple assault, we have 8.2 a single disability, and really this is the biggest height we see is for simple assault. It goes from 8.2 for a single disability to 21.1 for people with multiple disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So for victim offender relationship, we're talking about who they know that their offender is. So maybe they know them, maybe they're a stranger, and it breaks it down by their disability status. So people with disabilities and without disabilities. And this is out of a 100%. Yep. So intimate partner is at 11.4, and persons without disabilities is 12.7. So 11.4 per 1,000 people, their offender is an intimate partner. Other relatives, so maybe not someone who you're intimate with, but you have family members that, or maybe you're caretakers as well. That's 24.4 for persons with disabilities versus 6.5 for persons without disabilities. And for people with disabilities that their offender is someone they know well or just a casual acquaintance, this can still fall under your caretaker, your service provider. This is 32.9. And for people without disabilities, going to a service provider or even just someone they know well, it could be 29.7. And for strangers, persons without disabilities is 31.6. And for persons without disabilities, their offender being a stranger is 40.7 per 1,000 people. In unknown, this is just the other category we have. Maybe they're a stranger, but there's also some other category that relates to this in some way. So we're talking 9.8 for persons with disabilities and 10.4 for persons without disabilities. And like the last two things we have here, we have some charts and graphs for you. So for child victims of abuse and neglect, we have it broken down by disability type. We'll go over that. And this is going to be out of 100% when we talk about this. So for behavioral problems, we have their victimization being at 33%, and that's going to be the highest on the chart. So 33% of children that have behavioral problems are victims of some form of child abuse.
Would I'm assuming autism would fit into that category? Okay.
We can have autism, depending on where your research is coming from, it can be under behavioral, learning, or even intellectual.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
So just to break it down, to just go straight down my list, we have learning disability, and that's going to be at 9% out of the 100%. Physical disability, we have that at 5%. Other medical conditions, we have at 24. Emotional disturbance, we have at 19. Visual or hearing impairments, we have at 6%. And then for child victims with intellectual disabilities, we have at 4%. And then this last chart here we wanted to show you the statistics for the reports of violent crimes against people with disabilities, broken down between reported, prosecuted, and convicted. So to start with reported, we have 45 to 50% of violent crimes against people with disabilities being reported, but notice how we drop down to violent crime actually being charged. It goes down to 20 to 25%, and we finally take it down a step further to people actually convicted on these violent crimes. We're only seeing about 5 to 10%. And I know we talked about comparing this to people without disabilities and violent crimes, so I pulled some statistics on sexual assault, some current ones, and sexual assault is 63% of sexual assaults are not reported. So we see people with disabilities and their violent crimes being slightly less reported than sexual assaults for people just in general. But then to take it down a step further, we're going to skip prosecution and go right to people being convicted of sexual assault. We're only seeing 16%. So just like with violent crimes and disabilities, we're seeing with sexual assault, the further you go down from reported, prosecuted, to convicted, it just gets lower and lower on that scale.
Okay. To go back to the single versus multiple disabilities, I think it really stands out, and the difference between the serious and the simple assaults. So, I mean, the serious violent crime versus simple assault. You're seeing such a big increase with multiple disabilities that you don't see with the serious violent crime. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and this could be just, your regular offender on the street, seeing someone with a disability, maybe they're aware they have multiple disabilities, and they see that as an opportunity to take advantage of that person.
Sure. Okay. All right.
when you're talking about your serious violent crime, those can be what we call impassioned crimes, just meaning in the moment, but usually serious violent crimes are the ones that are thought out. So it kind of makes sense with the simple assault
Okay.
being
More
random-
spontaneous
Yeah, more
kind of thing,
spontaneous,
okay,
not planned out. They see someone with multiple disabilities and they try to take advantage of that person.
okay, makes sense. All right,
Did you wanna go into yours? Or which, sorry, which, topic are you talking about?
So I went over the services and the history and what we
Okay.
do, and then
Yeah.
I was just talking about the statistics.
That's a lot of information.
it is a lot of information, okay.
Where can they find this information if they want to look at it themselves?
Yes.
Is there a website or?
So this is all coming from the National Crime Victimization Survey, which is from the Department of Justice. It's their Bureau of Justice Statistics. So what they do is they send out this survey for people to fill out an answer so they can collect this information and even just look at it like we are today and say, you know, what are the numbers? Why are these numbers like this? And what can we do about that? So they collect that throughout different years. This one is, we pulled from 2011 to 2015 and mixed it in from their other survey from 2017 to 2019. So they release it every few years.
Okay. Great. Well, guys, thank you so much for being on our show today. You guys do great work. Angie, thank you so much.
You are welcome.
Even though she's incognito, that's fine. And folks, as we said in the beginning, this is going to be the first installation of a series, installment, I mean. Next week, February 9th, we're going to cover awareness and education. And then we're going to do 3 more installments, actually 4 more. March 1st is going to be financial crimes. March 8th is cybercrime. April 5th is developing healthy relationships. And finally, April 12th will be prevention and proactive safety. So we're excited to get the word out and make people more aware of crime and disability. So thank you for joining us. I am Rob,
Maria.
and we will see you next time.
See ya.
Bye-bye.